talking about?
All your questions will be answered.
Welcome to the world of
Cinéma.
That's our tape.
Welcome to That's Our Take, where we, the Jacksons, discuss many of the over 12,000 movies we have seen with a focus on classic cinema.
It's not an event to stay home and watch a movie in your living room or in your family room, in your bedroom. It's an event to make a night of it or a day of it, an afternoon of it, even a morning of it, and go out to the movies. That's an event, and it makes it more exciting. And when you see a movie in a theater, you're also being surrounded by people who are strangers. And there are people in that theater that you know do not believe what you believe. But in a movie theater, everybody is tuned in to the story being told to them from the screen. And for one moment, we are in communion and we are in agreement and we are a community. We're a community of strangers watching something that makes us laugh and cry and sing out and want to share those feelings. And often you go into a lobby and you're still buzzing about the movie and you talk to strangers. You're not talking about the stuff that divides you. You're talking about what just united you. And that is the great thing that movies build community. And we need community now more than ever.
Those wise words spoken by the prolific and inimitable Steven Spielberg, who has his upcoming Disclosure Day, and he who is also the subject of our podcast episode. And with us today, we have the co-founder of Film and Media Alliance of Southern Utah, co-host of great events such as Desertscape International Film Festival and Horror Fest International, and quite possibly the greatest fan of The Beard. This is Adam Mast. Welcome, Adam.
Good afternoon to you, lovely people. Hey, thanks for that nice intro.
Yeah, of course.
Now the pressure's on. I'm sure there are other people out there that are bigger fans of the Beard than I am, but I do adore him. So thanks for the intro.
Just to start off, so what was your first Spielberg experience?
This is a great one. The first film I have a memory of seeing in a theater, believe it or not, is a little movie called Jaws from 1975. I was 6 years old, and my parents took me to see it at a drive-in movie theater. Remember those? A drive-in movie theater in Northern California. I don't remember the name of the theater, but I do have memories of that experience. Specifically, Ben Gardner's head popping out of that the hole in that boat underwater. I have little memories of that from 6 years old.
Awesome.
And I think that might be a big reason. Yeah, that stuff just sticks with you, you know?
Yeah. It's I mean, that whole setup sounds like something very memorable. So was there a good turnout? Do you remember?
Well, I remember I remember people honking their horns, which is a very customary thing to do at the old school drive-in when the movie's working for you. That's what you'd do. You'd honk the horn, you know?
Yeah.
So I do remember that. And I've seen that movie countless times since, repertory screenings and so forth. In fact, we've screened the movie at a couple of our events. It's just a landmark movie. I mean, it really did set the template for the modern blockbuster as we know it. Lines around the block, that whole thing.
Yeah, and that's pre-Star Wars, so that really did set up, like you said, that was kind of it was wild. I don't know. I mean, I know something like Gone with the Wind had kind of something similar when it came out, but I don't really know of any other movie that had that kind of reaction right away. And Jaws really did set that up.
Yeah, well, the term was created because of that particular movie. But you're right. There were plenty of movies in their day, I'm sure, that were held in very high regard that everyone talked about. You mentioned Gone with the Wind, even some of Hitchcock's stuff,
Mm.
was very, very popular in its day. But yeah, interestingly enough, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas have been obviously have been great friends for decades, and they would have their little friendly competition in the 70s and 80s. Jaws comes out, it's the big hit. Then Star Wars comes out and tops it. They would have this sort of friendly competitive thing going on.
Okay, Adam, so following up with this idea that Steven Spielberg's second theatrical release was Jaws, and it was such a success, do you feel he's had that same budding filmmaker struggle as other directors?
Oh, sure. I think when you achieve that kind of success early on, especially, and Spielberg, it's a pretty cool career because right out of the gate, he's doing TV. He does an episode of Columbo, he does Night Gallery, he does a TV movie called Duel, which is sort of the precursor to Jaws. It's like Jaws with a great big truck chasing Dennis Weaver around on the highway. And so he sort of took the tools that he brought to that movie and applied them to Jaws. And as you mentioned, Jaws was a monstrous success, like right out of the gate. I mean, he had done Sugarland Express, so he got his feet wet on a smaller movie, and then boom, he's in this massive, huge hit. And to his credit, he follows Jaws up with Close Encounters, which was also a big hit. And then he does 1941, which, depending on who you talk to, is considered, the big misstep of his career, which I don't agree with. I think that 1941 is a curiosity, but I will say this: Spielberg never went on to do another straight comedy. So, take that as you will. Obviously, he took some of those criticisms to heart. Another really interesting thing, though, I wanted to bring up is that those first three movies, his films of the 70s, specifically Jaws, Close Encounters in 1941, those movies were all like wildly over schedule and over budget. And what's
Mm.
interesting is after that, he's been known as the king of coming in on time and on budget. And I've always found that interesting. But yeah, as far as his creative input and the growing pains and stuff like that, it's pretty insane if you look at this guy's resume. If you look at the films that he's done through the years, arguably our most celebrated filmmaker, at least in terms of like populist entertainment, just like one after another. It's pretty insane, the outpour of creative work that he's put out there.
For sure. I mean, he's made very iconic films, and so kind of
Yeah.
going off on that,
Yeah.
what you said, you felt 1941 was more of a misstep. Other people may have feel it's a movie he shouldn't have made. Do you feel there's any film he shouldn't have made?
That's an interesting question. Um, I mean, I'm sure if you ask Steven Spielberg that question, he'd say no. Every movie I've made, I was, I was meant to make because, if it just led to the next one. They're all sort
Right.
of
For sure.
their learning experiences, and I'm sure that even on something like 1941, I mean that was a production that was known for, again, going wildly over budget and over schedule, but I'm sure that there was a lot of joy in the process of making it. So if the film comes out and maybe it's not connecting with audiences for whatever reason, um, I don't think that that's a reason the movie shouldn't have been made. And again, I don't even think that it's Spielberg's worst film. And by the way, even that term, worst film, I mean, it's a Spielberg misfire is still like just 1,000 times better than some filmmakers' best work. So it's just crazy to look at the guy's career. I still can't wrap my head around it. I've grown up on Spielberg. I love him. He's my favorite filmmaker. Easy, like it's not even close. And I think it's a generational thing. It's because I've grown up on his stuff. But yeah, I look at that resume and I'm like, that's just insane to me. The same guy that made Jaws, made E.T. and Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Laura said. I mean, his body of work is more than just really good movies. They're iconic movies. Like they're movies that have become staples and memories for people. It's incredible. I feel like that's something that a filmmaker strives to do, is to make some sort of icon of a movie. And if they can get it hit once, that's great. But he's done it several
Multiple.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still the guy has his detractors. There are plenty of plenty of film fans and purists and other filmmakers that would not necessarily agree with that opinion. But that's what's great about art in general. One person's crap is another person's treasure, as they say. And Spielberg is, it's just insane to me. He really is like the soundtrack of my youth. Like I just there was just for me, every time I go to a Spielberg movie, it's not even going out to the movies. It's like an event every time.
Yeah.
And this isn't to say that I've been totally won over by every film that he's made, but I will say I don't think I could name one Spielberg film that I, straight up hated. There's some that I definitely am not a huge fan of, but I feel like I can always find something good in his work, even if it's lower tier Spielberg.
So then going with that kind of idea of good or lower tier work, when has he most surprised you?
When has he most surprised me?
Yeah.
Um, Either way, well, I'll tell you, I'll take the negative road here. I am not a fan of Lost World. For me, that's my least favorite Spielberg film.
Okay.
There are things about the movie that I like. You've seen it. You're probably
Yeah.
familiar with it. There's that great sequence where the camper, where the motorhome goes over the side of the cliff
Oh
and
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Demi
yeah.
Moore falls on the glass. I mean, it's a great set piece. No one does a set piece quite like Spielberg. It's exciting stuff. I just feel like I watched that movie, and the last thing I want to say about a Spielberg movie is what I'd say about that movie, which is I just don't like feel his heart is in it. There's something
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
there's something very mechanical about that movie. And often, I'll have my film loving friends ask me, are there series of films that you think should have been one and done? And I always cite Jurassic Park. I think Jurassic Park should have been one movie and that's it. I don't think any of the sequels should have been made. And yeah, I would. And Jaws, ironically, is the other one. I think Jaws is another film that should have been a one and done. It's such a lightning in a bottle type of situation, and why taint it by going on and on and on and on? But they're making money, so naturally they're gonna make sequels. But yeah, Jurassic World is that one sort of blemish for me, and I feel like I get why Spielberg wanted to make it, and he's been very vocal about certain aspects of that movie, like the T-Rex rampaging through San Diego there in the final act of the movie. And
Yeah.
Spielberg has been very vocal through the years saying, look, I admit I kind of did some of that stuff for selfish reasons. Like I knew I wouldn't make another Jurassic Park movie, so I wanted to put everything in there.
Mm.
But I don't know. There's just something off about it. I know that's sort of his attempt. The final act of that movie, sort of his attempt at King Kong, running through the city, causing a
Yeah, you're
scuffle.
right.
But anyway, yeah. So I would have to say I was pretty surprised when 1997 rolled around and Jurassic World dropped in theaters that summer, I was very excited for that movie, and I walked away feeling pretty disappointed. But again, this is not to say I hate that film. I mean, it's extremely well made. It's well
Yeah.
crafted. The special effects are insane, really, really amazing on a technical level. But I just didn't feel that heart or the sense of adventure or that sense of awe that we sort of come to love from him.
I get that. I get that. So like for me, something very similar to that is in Psycho, which I love Psycho. I think it's fantastic. But there's the whole John Gavin, right? The boyfriend of Janet Leigh's character.
Yeah.
His whole storyline in that movie, I feel like, man, Hitch was just not into this. And it did not, I couldn't feel his connection to that part of the story. I couldn't feel anything. And so I think that's kind of what you're saying. It just doesn't feel like, and I agree with you, Lost World just doesn't feel quite, I mean, it's not ET, it's not, it's not very Amblin in any way, and it is missing um some of the greater elements that really made Jurassic Park shine.
Well, at the same time, too, it is a lot of baggage. I mean, Jurassic Park is a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
And that's crazy too. Think about that. Jurassic Park came out in 1993. Spielberg was already incredibly celebrated by that point. You know, Uh, and for him to do Jurassic Park in the 90s, it's just I still can't. Again, I can't wrap my head around it. We're talking about a guy who made Jaws and Close Encounters in the 70s, Indiana Jones and E.T. in the 80s, and then he drops Jurassic Park in the 90s. It's a movie for a generation, and it's like it's not even. I mean, he's like 7 or 8 movies in at that point.
Mhm.
It's crazy to me.
I remember seeing Jurassic Park in theaters, and it was one that I think my mom had taken a risk on, um, with taking me. I was I think it was like 11 years old or something, um, and 10 or 11, and we went, and Spielberg has that history, especially throughout the 80s, of kind of pushing the rating a little bit. And I mean, he's responsible for the PG-13 rating.
He
Um,
sure is. More specifically, Temple of Doom and Gremlins.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, and
Yeah.
to a certain degree, Poltergeist is never lumped into that, but that movie also is very intense for a PG.
It's so my mom knew, like the Spielberg guy, he's got some edgier stuff. And so there was this risk of just taking us blindly to go see Jurassic Park. And man, it was scary. It was I,
It
I
is.
just I just remember just being like, this is the most intense movie I think I've ever seen. And but I loved it. I love every bit of it. I loved all the characters. I love the fatherly figure of Dr. Grant, which is kind of a common theme of his. Um,
Oh, 100%. 100%.
and it just, I don't know, it's such a magical movie. It's just a magical movie.
And there is a lot of heart to that movie also. And by the way, Jurassic Park probably it really is a um what's the word I'm looking for? A kindred spirit to Jaws. They are kind
Mm,
of there are a lot of similarities there. They're obviously both movies about monsters, but they're also movies about adventure movies, and they're both very character driven. Even though
yeah.
they're all about spectacle and awe, you do come to care about those characters. And I agree with you. Sam Neill's arc in that movie, in Jurassic Park, is a lot of fun. Like, he starts off as this guy that's not. I mean, he's he's basically scaring the crap out of that kid at the beginning
Yeah.
of the movie when he's telling him how a raptor attacks and so forth. And by the end of the film, he develops a bond with those kids, and it's just it's so great. There's so much nuance. Spielberg always brings a lot of character to his stuff.
Yeah. And more than just reaching to fans, to the general audience, he reaches out to future filmmakers. And I know, like, we just talked with Rob York recently, and he was inspired by Jurassic Park to get into movies, to become a filmmaker. And that that whole thing, it's just like with watching like a Hitchcock movie or a Kurosawa film or something. You watch it and there's something that touches you creatively, where you're like, how did he do that, like, how
Yeah,
did
that
you
spark. Yeah.
yeah, how do you capture that magic, and how can I do that? I want to do that. And clearly he has left a wake of imitators and inspired filmmakers as well.
Yeah, so many. The thing that's interesting too is, you and I have a little bit of an age gap, and you're citing Jurassic Park as sort of being that movie, and Rob York as well. And Jurassic Park, for kids that grew up in the '90s, it was that movie, that touchstone. And for
Mm,
me, that movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I was
mm.
11 when I saw it. And it's the film that I've seen the most times in my life. I wouldn't call it, it's right there up in the top three of my favorite Spielberg films. I wouldn't call it number one, but it is certainly the movie I've seen the most times. Um, so yeah, it's interesting how Spielberg has all of these movies that become that touchstone for a wide range of age groups.
I'm curious, Laura, like, is that what was sort of your Spielberg movie? I'm curious.
Hook.
Oh, not even.
We can talk about that one later. That, and that is that movie for some people.
Yeah,
Because it came out in 1991.
yeah.
And it touched a lot of people. Yeah, I'm excited though to hear Laura, what your Spielberg film is.
Oh no, I think it's closer to being Indiana Jones and just all of the that, because I remember watching it with my parents and my dad, and so it was probably his, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it became mine. So I knew Indiana Jones before I really understood um the Jurassic movies, you
Yeah,
know? And so I think it would be Indiana Jones for me. Like if I'm gonna pick a body of work, that's probably what I'm going with.
Yeah.
I think that's a safe bet. I mean, um, I remember. I'll tell you my really sad and pathetic Raiders of the Lost Ark story. So my mom took me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark on opening day at this movie theater in Anaheim, California. If I recall, it was called the Cinedome. I don't think it's there any longer, but we got to the theater. We were in rush hour, so we got to the theater late. So my first experience watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, yes, it's true. I missed the first 10 minutes of the film, the boulder
No.
roll, the whole thing. And I
Oh
still was
no.
in, yeah, it's crazy. Now, that said, I went and saw the movie a second time, like the following weekend. In fact, if I had my way, I would have gone back to see Raiders of the Lost Ark the next day. But my mom and I already had another film that we were going to, Clash of the Titans, which opened the same weekend, which was a great weekend for a kid that loved movies, to be able to
Yeah.
watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and Clash of the Titans on back-to-back days. But yeah, through the years, Raiders has just become that movie for me. And up until that point, I had seen a ton of stuff. I had seen Star Wars. I was a massive fan of Richard Donner's Superman, Close Encounters, of course, Jaws, all of those. I had seen all of those films. But I think Raiders just hit me at a certain time in my life. I was 11, and again, lightning in a bottle. I'd never seen anything like that before. The way that movie is paced, um, it's just it's incredible. And Harrison Ford's performance, of course, which is to me oddly underrated because it's a full blown action movie. So I think sometimes people don't talk about the performances in that movie, which are amazing. Like Karen Allen,
Karen
everybody in
Allen,
that
yeah.
movie that gives a great performance, and Ford just oozes charisma. But he's also not a superhero. He's a guy that literally is making it up as he goes. He gets
Yeah.
hurt. The whole thing. He even uses the line in the movie. I'm making this up as I go.
Yeah.
It's the movie is that self-referential that they actually use it as a line in there. But yeah, it's the movie I can watch over and over and over and over and over. I never ever get tired of it.
Now I'm curious because Tom Selleck auditioned for that and screen tested, and according to Spielberg, even very recently,
He
Spielberg is
had the
still,
role.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it
Tom
was
Tom
his
Selleck's role. Um,
stupid Magnum PI.
yeah,
But I don't. I mean, yeah, as the story goes, Tom Selleck was locked into his contract with Magnum PI, and but if have you ever heard Tom Selleck talk about it?
no, I haven't.
Yeah, he's pretty gracious about it. It's like if Selleck, here's the thing, I actually can see Selleck in that role. I could see
Hmm.
how that would have worked. I mean, to me, Harrison Ford will always be Indiana Jones, but at the same time, I could see why Selleck would have been the choice for that and how it would have worked. But the fact is, we would have been deprived Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones had we had Selleck stuck with the role. So, and
Yeah.
Selleck went on to do like High Road to China and a couple of adventure films there in the 80s that almost felt like his chance at sort of capturing that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, isn't that crazy that Selleck had the role? And from what I've read, George Lucas was very hesitant to to put Ford in the role because he had already had
Han
him,
Solo
yeah, as Han Solo. I'd like to ask you guys a question. Do you have a favorite of the
of
of the
the Indiana
series?
Jones.
Yeah, and we can leave the last two out of the equation. And I say that with tongue firmly planted in cheek. I'm not, when Crystal Skull came out, I quickly realized, oh, this is the movie I only thought I wanted. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? It's like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade has such a perfect ending. I mean, Indy
yeah.
literally rides off into the sunset. There shouldn't. That's where it ended for me. You know.
Yeah. I see that.
I don't know, Laura, you go first.
I'm going with Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife would love you. That's her favorite. That's her favorite.
Why that one?
It's just the one I've seen the most, I think, and so it's kind of like that comfort feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I love about Temple of Doom? If you think about it, Temple of Doom is almost like the anti-sequel. It's like every direction that Raiders goes, you can feel Spielberg and Lucas purposefully pulling in opposite directions, like every which way. Like right down to the idea that Temple of Doom's not even technically a sequel; it's a prequel. It takes place a year before the events in Raiders, which is
Right,
weird. A lot of people, even fans, a lot of fans are still not aware of that
right.
that that it actually takes place before. But instead of having the tough as nails and spunky heroine, you've got screechy Kate Capshaw's Willie Scott. They even have Short Round in there, giving Indy like a sidekick. The
Yeah.
whole. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Sala could be construed as a sidekick in Raiders also, but it's a little bit different, and it's
Oh,
very
it's
dark
totally
and
different.
yeah, dark and gloomy with all those kid slaves and everything. But I'll be darned if I don't love Temple of Doom. In fact, you have your Temple of Doom people and you have your Last Crusade people, which I think is kind of lame because I think you can be both, which I most certainly am. And which which one I watch just depends on my mood in a day. Like I think Temple of Doom and Last Crusade are both outstanding movies. I love them both dearly. Raiders will always be my favorite, but I love the other two as well.
Yeah, and actually, my answer is going to be the same as Lara's. It's going to be Temple of Doom because I'm the most familiar with that one. I watched that one the most as a kid, um, and um, and I don't know if it's because of Short Round that I like identified and felt like now I was in the movie.
You
Um,
get to be the sidekick. You get to be the person hanging out with Indiana Jones, and that's cool.
right,
Yeah.
and
And
that's
by the way, another father-son story,
right,
which is
right.
again a common theme in a lot of Spielberg famously sort of comes from a broken home, and that's something that plays in a lot of his work, most famously in E.T., which is heartbreaking, but so well done. But I'm right there with you, and also the second half of Temple of Doom moves like a freaking freight train. Like it is
Oh yeah,
just non-stop, and it's man, it's such a fun movie. That's the first movie I ever camped out for. I skipped school. They were doing like a sneak screening. It was in May, so the school season was about to end, but I skipped school and I went to the Chinese Theater in Hollywood and camped out there on Hollywood Boulevard with a bunch of other crazy Indiana Jones fans. I was 15, I think,
good
and
for you.
it was incredible. It was
That's awesome.
it was such a great experience.
Yeah, and whenever we go to Disneyland and I go on the Indiana Jones ride, I think of Temple of Doom. I feel like that's what it's based on is Temple of Doom.
Well, you're
Um,
in a mine car for
yeah,
sure. Kind of. Well, I guess it's not. It's a Jeep, right?
right, but
Yeah,
still,
It feels like that, though. I agree. It definitely has that Temple of Doom vibe going for
yeah,
sure. And then
yeah,
and then
it's fun.
yeah, it's great. And then we get to Last Crusade in uh in 1989, which almost in some weird ways feels like an apology movie because so many critics and fans were down on the sort of dark nature of Temple of Doom that they wanted it
Mm,
to go back to something uh I don't know, sort of lighter, and they went back to that like more of a known religious artifact. We get the Ark of the Covenant Raiders, and then we get the Holy Grail
yeah,
in Last Crusade.
it's
And
the Return of the Jedi of the Indiana Jones movies.
I'd never heard anyone put it like that. That's an interesting analogy. Although thankfully, Last Crusade doesn't have any Ewoks in it.
Oh, but it
Um,
has the dad, and the dad's close
yeah,
enough.
yeah. I think Spielberg probably felt, let's let's give Indy more personality, and what better way to do that than introducing his dad? I got to tell you too, it's pretty interesting. Did you know that before Raiders of the Lost Ark happened, Spielberg was heavily considering doing a Bond film? Have you heard this story? He wanted to do a James Bond movie.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, he and Lucas were vacationing in Hawaii, and Lucas was like, "Well, what are you thinking?" And Spielberg said, "I want to do a Bond movie." And Lucas said, "Well, forget that. I got a better idea." And he pitched him Indiana Jones. So history was made. They made Indiana Jones. And then the whole thing comes full circle when Spielberg casts James Bond as Indy's dad in Last Crusade, which I always thought was such a cool, kind of a cool thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. George Lazenby wasn't available, so
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Lazenby is underrated, by the way. I,
Yeah, I
I, I
agree. I
like On Her
agree.
Majesty's Secret Service. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I agree.
yeah. But once again, father-son dynamic in Last Crusade, which I know a lot of the fans' misgivings about Last Crusade is that sort of they think it's kind of silly, the banter and stuff between them. But I think there's an earnestness to it, to the way that Ford and Connery play that stuff in Last Crusade, that it to me is just great. I love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
it's a
just
lot
like
of
the
fun.
scene when they're like Indy. We called the dog Indy.
Yeah, exactly. We named the dog Indiana. Yeah, it's so great. Um, so yeah, a great trilogy, a product of its time, a perfect trilogy of the 80s.
Yeah, and I
Um,
like that. It's weird. I feel like I like that it's contained in the 80s, if that makes sense. It's like it has its own it stayed true to itself. It didn't venture outside into a different time of filmmaking. And anyway. Well, go ahead,
No, I
Laura, sorry.
totally agree. Yeah, 100%.
oh, you're fine. I was just kind of curious because you've brought up like the dad father son relationship. So what are some other things that are commonalities in films like the father son relationship?
I think that sort of the celebration of youth, which obviously we get a lot of that in ET. It's such a great coming of age story, and it's hard. It's a story about a boy becoming a man, and we've seen that in a lot of the other stuff, especially stuff that Spielberg would go on to produce, where he would really uh, just really go into that celebration of youth, like you see it in the Goonies, stuff of that nature. But he's really great at that stuff, and the way that he works with kids, his ability to work with children and almost speak through them. So that there's that aspect of his work, especially some of his earlier work. And then the more obvious answer would be that sense of discovery, that sense of awe and wonder that we see in his stuff. In Close Encounters with the aliens and the mothership, in Jurassic Park, just watching Dr. Grant react, watching him and Ellie Sadler react the first time they see a dinosaur.
Yeah, there's he captures that wonder moment really well.
I,
And go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna cut out. You guys
Okay.
keep going, okay?
Okay.
Okie dokie.
I love you. Have fun. I'm trying to think of kind of more recent movies when he's done that, where he's brought out that sense of wonder, the character reaction.
I'm hoping he does in Disclosure Day.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with which is sort of his. So he's made 4 films in his career that are alien centric, but War of the Worlds is really more of his an allegory for 9/11. So it doesn't really fall into the Close Encounters ET Disclosure Day camp. It's sort of an outlier. It's its own thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but I am curious to see what exactly Disclosure Day is, because they're playing it pretty close to the vest. There's buzz out. They've already screened it for critics, and there's already a buzz generating about it. But in terms of what exactly is going on in that film, they're keeping it pretty hush hush. I'm very, very curious and excited, and trying to keep those expectations in check for sure. By the way, Spielberg did do a movie when he was 16 or 17 years old called Fire Firelight. He made a film called
Okay.
Firelight. I don't even know if that movie still exists. I think he shot it on 8 millimeter, and they showed it. They did a screening of it at a drive-in in Arizona, like when he was only 17 years old. How cool would it be to be able to see that, to go
That would be
see,
great.
yeah, some early effort from our most celebrated filmmaker.
They
Um,
should add that in as like a special feature on some home video release or something.
yeah, it's
Um,
2 hours and 20 minutes long.
it's how long?
220 from what I've read. It's on IMDb, and if you can find little clips from it on YouTube. But I find it interesting that it has never seen the light of day, and I can only assume it's because it's just sort of disappeared. Like if he shot it on 8mm or even 16, if it was the only copy he had, maybe it's just disappeared, or maybe it's just something that's for him that he doesn't want anyone to see. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it's just his personal project.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. We're kind of talking about he's got his alien movies. So so Hitchcock Hitchcock was or is still very famously and almost immortally tied to the horror genre, even though he only made just a few movies in horror. Psycho, The Birds, Frenzy. That's it.
Right.
Um,
Was
um,
family plot, or is that more of
no,
a
that's kind of I don't even know how to describe that movie. It has golly, I don't know how to describe it. It's a weird hodgepodge of a movie. There's all these different elements involved, but horror is definitely not one of them.
okay?
Um, but he seems tied to that. That's just it. Anytime we talk to anybody about Hitchcock that's not very familiar with him, they're always like, "Oh yeah, he makes the scary movies." I'm like, "No, no, no." Anyway, do you think Spielberg has that? Do you think that he is tied to a certain genre that people kind of pigeonhole him in, or
Not if you look. No, I not now. I maybe earlier on he would have been kind of pigeonholed into that, but I don't think so anymore. Only because you just look at his resume, the stuff that he's done, and he is one of those filmmakers that um you can't hold him down, I don't feel like, to one thing. It's like Ridley Scott and some of these other filmmakers where the further into his career he got, you could see that he was trying to almost reinvent himself.
yeah,
It's especially once we get to the mid 80s, when he really is like, look, I love the sort of populist entertainment that I'm known for, but there's this other side of me. I really want to show this other thing. And then, we start seeing things like The Color Purple and Empire of the Sun, which, by the way, um, I, it, you often see these polls where people are asked what they think Spielberg's most underrated movie is. And if I were to pick that movie, it would be Empire of the Sun. I think that is a movie that more people should see. I think it's stunning, and it probably, that film, even more than Color Purple, I feel like showed him in a new light. Because in that film, it's almost like the opposite of E.T. If E.T. is a celebration of youth or a story about a child becoming a man, Empire of the Sun is almost is a story about a kid whose childhood is ripped away from him, basically. And it's at the same time, it's such a moving movie, and it's got so many incredible images in it. That movie is just, it's gorgeous. It is one of the most beautifully shot movies of his career, and the John Williams score in that film it's a top 3 John Williams score for me. Interestingly enough, so Spielberg obviously had a lot of influences throughout his life that sort of um, made him want to become a filmmaker. But one of those guys, obviously, is David Lean, and David Lean was kind of a mentor of his. And David Lean, I think the last film David Lean did was a movie called Passage to India.
India, yeah, like 84 or something.
Something like that. And apparently, Lean had asked Spielberg to direct certain parts of that film, and for whatever reason, Spielberg declined. I'm not entirely sure why, but when you look at something like Empire of the Sun, I can feel Lean's influence a lot in that movie specifically.
Yeah.
Just the scope of it, and its look at war and so forth. But man, it's such a incredible film with some early performances by a lot of amazing talent. John Malkovich,
John
obviously,
Malkovich, yeah.
Ben Stiller's got a bit part in that film, which a lot of people don't know about. I mean, gosh, he was a young man in his, I think, early 20s or something like that.
Huh.
Um,
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it for sure.
yeah, it's a bit part. He just plays one of the guys there at the concentration camp.
Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, I know we kind of got off track there. But yeah, his range, Spielberg's range through the years, I feel like it makes it hard to just classify him as uh a horror guy or even the alien guy. With
Mm.
E.T. was so monumentally huge when it came out. And with Close Encounters, he easily could have been tied down is that guy that makes the alien movies. And that's certainly a big part of who he is. But no, I don't know that I certainly wouldn't put him like in one camp.
Yeah.
Um,
He's got a lot. He's done a lot of genres. Obviously the sci-fi one I think is has come throughout. Also, the history one. You'd look at his World War II movies. You look at like Amistad. Those
so
those
Saving
those
Private
movies come.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, those all are woven in. But yeah, he's done, like we mentioned, comedy. 1941. I'd even say Always is kind of leaning on that comedy side.
A
Um,
little bit.
and he's done obviously musical with West Side Story, and he's tackled social dramas, and he's done a family movie with BFG. He's hit almost everything. Is there
Yeah.
something you want to see him tackle? Is there?
Well, you know what he's doing next, right? He's been saying, and this is actually exciting. There is something that he has not yet done that he wants to do, and according to the press tour that he's been on with Disclosure Day, he said that his next movie is going to be a Western, which
Yeah,
is
good.
yeah, which is really cool. And I think the reason he did West Side Story is that was an itch that he hadn't had a chance to scratch. Although he does that great sort of like Busby Berkeley sequence at the beginning of Temple of Doom, that big
Right.
nightclub number.
That's a huge number. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
massive. It's also like a movie in of itself,
yeah.
its own little thing. And I want to revisit West Side Story. It's a movie that I remember being very excited to see it, even though I'm like, why on earth would you? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, Robert Wise's movie is a classic in its
Yeah.
own right, and I get he wanted to be. I don't want to say that his choice to make that movie was politically motivated, but certainly he had Latino actors playing Latino roles and so forth. So I do get why Spielberg wanted to tackle it. And for what it is, I mean, that movie is pretty impressive. It's a
Mhm.
well-made film. It's a well acted movie. But if you've got the Robert Wise movie is pretty great. And I grew up on
Yeah.
that film. My parents would watch that movie often. So um but yeah, and yeah, we'll see how the Western turns out. That's exciting.
I
Um
would. That's one I was hoping. Like I keep hoping for. I mean, he's already hit on Western tropes. Indiana Jones is very much a Western character.
for sure.
And the um, I would even say like I know this is kind of weird, but like even Minority Report has some kind of Western themes going on with it.
Yeah. I
And
love that
and
film, by the way. Absolutely
yeah,
love that movie.
great movie. I don't hear it talked about nearly enough.
Well, it's
Um,
definitely got that sort of that noir thing going
mhm.
too. It's a noir film. And that's another sci-fi movie. Yeah, we're talking about. I guess if you do really start to break down his career, there are a lot of sci-fi titles in there. Even Jurassic Park has a
Mhm.
sci-fi element to it. AI, of course,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
which I think is another one of his movies that I wouldn't call it underrated, but I absolutely would call it misunderstood. I just by myself included. When that movie came out, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I would just thought, oh, this is going to be Spielberg's return to big populist entertainment, and it is kind of this sort of dour, bleak movie, but now I look at it, and even though I do think it's a flawed movie, I absolutely love that movie. I think it's
Yeah.
majestic, and there's so much power in that film, and it's tragic. I mean,
Yeah.
that moment, I don't know how well you know that movie, but there's a moment in that film where the mom like discards David in the woods. Like she just
Oh,
leaves
right.
him.
Right. Yeah.
It's so profound and heartbreaking. And this is a kid, or not a kid, a robot whose only purpose is to love. It's like designed to love, and the mom is like discarding him in the
Mhm.
woods, like someone like setting a dog free. Get away. Like
Right.
it's so sad and heartbreaking. And gosh, what a movie! Just a movie that Spielberg has often said he felt it was a movie that he really had to make because of Kubrick's passing, and a movie
Right.
that's still debated now. Like, whose movie is that? Is it,
Right.
you know, a lot of fans are like, Kubrick fans feel like Spielberg stepped in and kind of maybe ruined some of the stuff that that Kubrick would have done differently. And
It's
I
funny. I've
never.
seen Spielberg talk about that, and he's
Oh
and
yeah,
he's like, the things that people think that I messed up are
are
actually the
his.
things are yeah,
Yeah,
those are
right.
Kubrick stuff. You know?
Yeah, yeah. It really is a cool marriage of completely different aesthetics, because I do think Kubrick's a master. He is such a meticulous craftsman. But he's also very cold and calculated. Spielberg's almost the opposite of that. He sort of
Mhm.
leads with his heart. He's very emotional driven, and so forth. So to watch like these two different styles come together is really intriguing to me. And the thing that's really interesting is you can see it in the movie. You can see these two things. They are pulling at each other at times, but also come together at other
Yeah.
times. It
Yeah.
really does feel like what you would expect a movie made by Spielberg and Kubrick to feel like.
Right. It is exactly that. I completely agree with you. It feels like two different movies that at times really do gel. And it is they have completely different styles. They have completely different uh motivations.
Yeah.
Um I know that Kubrick is um he's really fascinated by violence and in other areas that Spielberg just isn't in the same way. Spielberg's definitely got heart in his storytelling that Kubrick doesn't quite have. But it does come together, and like I remember caring for Gigolo Joe more than I should have. Um, and and
An android prostitute. Go,
yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's it exactly. Like it's very much a Kubrick character that I feel like that I cared for. And I don't know, it's an interesting film. It's definitely one to if you're a fan of Spielberg's, for sure to watch, um just to see him, take over these reins and complete to the best of his abilities. And folks, this concludes our part one of our Steven Spielberg episode with special guest Adam Mast. Please be sure to continue with part two. Thank you for listening to That's Our Take.